my voice. It's suffering from a bit of a cough, which has made it a bit hoarse. So I'll not speak too much. But can I please welcome everyone to this meeting, the Economy and Housing Policy Committee, on the 25th of November 2025, from the Walton Suite, Winchester Guildhall. The time is 6:30 p.m. My name is Councillor James Batho, Chairperson of the committee. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel and will also be available for later viewing. Can I ask that please ensure that mobile phones are on silent or switched off. In the event of an emergency or the need to evacuate, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all instructions from the team. I would like to welcome members of the public and visiting councillors in attendance today, though I don't think we have any. So turning to the agenda, and agenda item 1, apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Eve, who's been replaced by Councillor Westwood. And Matthew, anything further than that? Thank you. And then agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest that they need to declare to this meeting? Thank you. Item 3, chairperson's announcements. There's none for today. And then agenda item 4, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 16th of September 2025. And I can ask if those minutes can be signed as a correct record. Thank you. And then we have agenda item 5, public participation. We've had no requests to speak at the meeting, though Lynn Mellish from the TAC board is attending and observing. Welcome, Lynn. Thank you. So if we can then move on to agenda item 6, the housing revenue account and business plan and budget options. And I can ask Councillor Reach to introduce. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The paper before the committee this afternoon is setting out the HRA business plan and budget options. This paper has been through the scrutiny committee just over a week ago, and also through cabinet as well. So this is the third bite of the cherry this evening, but it's important to get input from the policy committee, I think. By way of introduction, of course, in all the things the council do, it's important we secure value for money and best value and efficiency, but none more so than under the HRA, since this is primarily funded by tenants' rents. So this is tenants' money funding services largely for tenants, not exclusively, but for the most part. What you have before you, subject to the recommendations being agreed, what you have before you is a balanced and a viable HRA business plan, and it's one that protects our tenants' money. You'll see the main pressures on the HRA over the period of the business plan are the ones that we would find elsewhere in the council, but particularly macroeconomic factors driving interest rates and inflation, given how much debt the HRA has. So the HRA debt is around £200 million, which we've used over the years to fund investment in our housing stock. Of that debt, about 3/4 of it is for the Public Works Loan. It's the third time I've read this paper out and I still can't say Public Works Loan Board. And the remaining quarter is internal borrowing. There are some technical changes to the way that the interest will be treated, but the main headline when it comes to the debt is that we're assuming a higher rate of interest than we were previously, just reflecting prevailing market conditions for debt. So down to brass tacks, that means we're assuming 6% rather than 5%. That obviously, given the size of the debt in the HRA, that puts some pressure. Further to that, you'll see there are a number of smaller scale items which also add pressure, including the allocation of £1 million to look at retrofit of 30 properties to address any issues that we may have there, and some various smaller bits and pieces which are set out through the paper. The appendix 2 of the paper as well, you will see some proposals for some reductions in expenditure under the HRA as well. These are ranked according to green, amber and red as to their deliverability and our confidence that we can deliver those. We will look to progress them because they are the things that will help us balance this budget too. They are yet to be fully fleshed out, so you'll see where they are ranked red. There will be some additional work that will need to be done to identify the savings and how deliverable they are. I think that's probably enough by way of an introduction. I can go through more detail, but it's all set out in the paper. So I'm more than happy to take questions from the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Reach. Are there any questions?
This one in the, how has it ended up being that we're in this position where it's been through cabinet and it's been through scrutiny and it's only just come into policy committee after it's already agreed? So it's a bit cart and horse. And I wonder whether there was a specific reason for that. I'm sure there must be, but I'm unaware of it at the moment.
So, yeah, to
Chair, I can take that if you like. I think this is part of the consultation on this report in total, because clearly if Cabinet hadn't agreed in the recommendations that are in this report, then we wouldn't have proposals to consult on in relation to potential savings. It's part and parcel of the overall consultation, which is including emailing all the tenants where we have email addresses for. We've also taken this report to tax. So by the time that Cabinet in February gets the opportunity to consider the final version, they will have the opportunity to take into account of any comments this evening, any comments from all our customers, as well as any comments from TACT as well.
Sorry, but it's already been agreed by Cabinet the other day, hasn't it? No.
It's been agreed, the proposal has been agreed for consultation. Nothing's actually been agreed yet.
Thank you very much. I now understand.
Councillor White.
So it's regarding Appendix 2 of the proposed savings. Obviously, the report explains why the savings are needed, and it says that they wouldn't impact on lead to any reduction in the service. But I wonder if any work's been done on the impact on tenants, and what tenants might expect to see. For example, the estate's improvement budget, I've noticed, is substantially reduced, and what that might look like to tenants and what they could expect, if you see what I mean.
Councillor Reach.
It's a very valid point. Unfortunately, I couldn't make the last TACT board, so I can't comment for whether it was gone through in immense detail. But on the specific item you referred to, item 9, a reduction from 250 to 100,000 for estates improvements. In the past, we've tended to focus on large-scale grand projet on our estates. That is expensive. But we have heard, or I've heard since I've taken over this portfolio, that actually residents are looking for tenants and residents looking for smaller scale investments, things like improved cycle storage, cycle lockers, improvements to shared areas, car parking improvements, that sort of thing. So although I recognise it is a reduction, certainly the discussions I've had is that I would like that to be spread more evenly across the district rather than focusing on large projects. So that's Mr. Hendy, you're at TACT board, whether you can comment on whether it was discussed.
Exactly that, Chair. I think the discussion, and again, this is a proposal not agreed yet, was really to try and spread the jam more thinly across a range of areas rather than having the big schemes which are costing tens of thousands of pounds in one particular area.
Councillor Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. There's a few risks identified in the report. One of the ones that jumped at me, section 11.12, talks to the sort of the stock condition survey not being ready in time to sort of inform or feed into the major repair program. So I guess the question I've got is whether that has been taken into account as, I guess, as a costed risk, either within the 5-year projections or the 30-year plan that's in front of us this evening.
Councillor Reach.
So the stock condition survey is underway, and I'm happy with the progress we've made so far. But so is the social housing regulator. You're aware that they are taking a close eye on the way we're managing our housing stock, and given the progress we've made, they've agreed to reduce the frequency of their inspections effectively on our performance. So we're on target to deliver that. As for whether there was a specific cost arising from that being baked in, again, I'll have to look to Mr. Hendy. I called out, and just before there is a specific cost around looking at retrofit work to about 30 properties to look at what work may need to be done to bring those back up to standard where they should have been. Mr. Hendy, as for what might arise from the stock condition survey.
If I may, Chair, yeah, there's two bits of information coming out of stock condition survey. Obviously, we'll update our existing stock condition database, which is used to drive the major works programs, but also it identifies any significant risks or hazards at this point in time. Those resolved from the repairs and maintenance budget because we have to deal with them immediately. So, and to date, we haven't had a large number of those category 1 hazards coming through that we've had to act upon. So the expectation is that we carry on with the existing major works fund determined from the existing stock condition database, and it will be the subsequent year where that will be updated to better focus the investment.
Councillor Morris.
Yes, I know that we're increasing rent at CPI plus 1%. And I just want to ask whether that figure is mandated by central government or whether we have any leeway to be charging more or less than that figure. Because it looks like we're not actually making a decision on this. We are merely noting that this is what the increase is going to be. Is that correct?
It's complex. So yes, effectively, in previous years, we have in the past, we've chosen to freeze rent increases at CPI. So we raised them lower than we could have done. It was the right thing to do to support people when cost of living was such a difficult issue. Mr. Hendy, there is a complex calculation when if you're talking about formula rent and how rent will be calculated, and I think we're still awaiting government guidance on this as well. So I don't think we know yet, but CPI plus 1 is a prudent assumption. But we have flexibility to go below as we've done in the past. But bear in mind that if we choose to go below that, that is a compounding cost through the life of the business plan, so it could be very expensive. Mr. Hendy, if there's anything further to add.
Yes, if I may, Chair, the government rent regime is normally to allow CPI plus 1%, which is the 4.88%. So your discretion is only to have rent increases below that, not above it. As Councillor Beach said, you could decide to have a lower rent increase, but unfortunately this is a zero-sum game. So if you don't increase the rent to that level and the business plan is balanced on 4.8%, then you have to cut services elsewhere to pay for it.
Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, just really as a follow up on that, if we're going to go to the CPI plus 1, as well as a cumulative effect on the funding here, and it's also a cumulative effect on the tenant as we push it through. I mean, have we looked at as rents rise, the impact on recovery rates and other areas of hardship potentially we get dragged into if the rent becomes less affordable for those individuals? I mean, it won't be an exact science, but it must be as the rents rise over longer periods at that rate, it starts to bite. Basically, that's something we've looked at how it might feed through.
Councillor Rich. I think we all recognise that it's a significant outgoing for people. Even if we are below market rate, it is still significant, and CPI plus 1 is above inflation. So don't underestimate how difficult it is. In terms of recovery, we actually we have a very high level of recovery. We have a very low level of bad debt in the HRA, and I think that is right. I think we get enforcement and debt recovery right, because of course if we're not recovering it, it's other tenants that pay for it. Frankly, it's the zero-sum game that Mr. Hendy referred to before. As to whether we get to an absolute level of rent which is unaffordable for people, I'm not sure we've done that specific bit of analysis. It's something we could certainly look at. That when we report our unrecovered debts under the HRA, that I'm sure I'm right in saying that is not ticked up, and we haven't seen a particular change in that. So at least as a kind of indirect indicator, we are still at a level which we hope is affordable for people.
Mr. Morris.
Well, again, regarding service charges, I see that the business plan is for full cost recovery, and in 11.9 it says a number of charges that would increase significantly. Could you sort of be more precise on what those charges which are going to increase significantly are going to be, so that those tenants can be forewarned of what they might, or what the charges are coming their way?
Councillor Reach.
Yeah, so this is referring to where we've identified that perhaps we've held charges at a flat rate for some time. We have a policy, the council, of full cost recovery, but also recognise that we cannot overnight flip that switch, because that would be very difficult for people to absorb. If we look at Appendix 2, you'll see the car park in Middlebrook Street, not far from here, where actually we've chosen to phase in some of these changes so that people are not hit with huge in-year or year-to-year increases. Another prime example would be around sewage charges. We know that there are, I've talked about sewage countless times in this and well in other committees, but again, for members' benefit, which the City Council or the HRA specifically have around 45 to 50 different sewage systems of different types, sizes, scales, different mix of owner-occupier and tenants connected to those systems. And those systems, we know we don't recover the full cost of providing those services, and there is a gap of around £250,000 a year. Now, were we to go to full cost recovery overnight, there would be some very, very large increases for people, and that wouldn't be the right thing to do, which is why you'll see on Appendix 2, I'm recommending that we increase sewage charges by 10%, which would be fair, and it would be consistent, in fact, be considerably less than Southern Water have increased their charges by. As for other examples of service charges where we are way behind, I'll look to Mr. Hendy, but I think they are the main ones.
So
There'll be a range of service charges, largely those properties, those people who live in properties where communal services, so it should be communal cleaning, grounds maintenance, those sort of things. And as Councillor Reach has pointed out in Appendix 2, if the council were minded to move to full cost recovery for service charges, that would generate £100,000 back into the HRA. Now, clearly that may be unaffordable for some of our customers, and the council might want to take a view on how it staggers that. To date, there's been a cap of 5% or £5 on that. The counter argument to that is that, of course, if you don't charge full cost recovery to those customers that enjoy those services, it's every other tenant that's subsidising those costs. So, as I said, unfortunately, there is some game. It's one or the other.
I have an additional question. So I'd be correct in characterising that as you said it's a sort of across the board increases that will be affecting all residents generally equally. Would that be correct, or is it going to be some residents are going to be in a situation where they have no increases and other residents are noticing a significant increase?
As Mr. Hendy said, it depends. So crudely, if you're in a council home in Winchester Town, for example, you'll be on main sewage. You know, if you're in your own home, you'll probably have very limited service charges. But if you're in a block, you know, you will have shared communal spaces which will be heated and lit. There'll be shared gardens in some cases, all manner of things. And so I'm afraid every case is different. And we've got 5,500 homes across the district, so they will be very different all over the place. So some of these charges will be, you know, will be shared by more than others. It's a very complex picture, and it will depend from property to property.
Can I just ask, in terms of, I mean, AWAB's law has been recently introduced. Do we anticipate that there'll be additional costs associated with the higher levels of sort of responsiveness to issues of damp and mould, and have those been covered by the budget that's in front of us? Thank you.
Yeah, so AWAB's law came into force around a month ago. which does place a much higher duty on landlords to deal with damp and mould. We expect there probably will be some increase. We also have the Renters' Rights Act, which will come in 3 tranches over the next 18 months or so, I think, right? So there will be further impacts from that as well. As for specifically what we think the additional costs, we'll look to Mr. Hendy. Part of the work we're doing on stock condition will also help us identify that as well.
We've not precisely sort of identified what the additional costs would be. This is the time of year where we do get increased demand from customers around damp and mould. As you'll see in the reports, there's an additional provision of £1.1 million into the repairs and maintenance account for next year, which would be the accounts which would be drawn upon to deal with damp and mould issues.
Thank you.
Councillor Westwood. Thank you. I've got some questions on some work that's, I think, is positive stuff that we're doing in the HRA. So first of all, around the implementation of the MRI module for customer service and move to the cloud. I'm just interested in the benefits that we receive from this, both from the customer service side and from a financial side, in terms of efficiency of dealing with the volume of requests that come in, and whether that's been factored, how it's been factored into the plan going forwards. The second is around the stock condition survey, which, whilst it's going to cost us, I understand that, to do the work, but having got that in place, I would assume there must be some benefits of having that information to draw on in terms of efficiency of operation going forward. So both of those areas, I think, could and should be providing benefit. And thirdly, around the new maintenance contract that we're putting in place. So again, I can see benefits in customer service. I'm unclear whether any costs will be incurred in that, and whether they've been factored into the plan going forwards in terms of higher or indeed lower maintenance costs going forwards. So in those 3 areas, which I think are all the right things to do, I'm just interested in how that impacts customer service and how it impacts the financial model going forwards. Thank you.
Councillor Rich.
So on repairs and maintenance, we are re-procuring that contract. We've had a separate paper which we've taken to Cabinet Committee Housing, I think, on that some time ago. But the headline from that is that it will be let on a schedule of rates basis. So we should have more certainty over the actual cost of individual jobs. Because we haven't completed the stock condition survey yet, we've used historical data on repairs and maintenance to inform this budget setting, because we'll have to wait until we have that full stock condition picture before we'll be able to have that level of detail. Now, that's not to say we've rolled things forward. There are trends we've taken. We have seen a rising trend in repairs and maintenance, and there are all manner of reasons for that, but so we based it on that assumption. As for the customer experience, there are all manner of things that we'll be procuring through this contract, which should help us give a better standard of service. One of those things would be where a tenant requests a fix, and there is a job that's being raised to repair an item, and then we go there, our contractors go to the home and find that actually it's a different or slightly larger job. Well, we will be able to deal with that in a much more cohesive way, whereas at the moment this involves a fairly manual process of raising additional jobs and sending additional people, which I know from the feedback from the TAC board can be very irritating and disruptive for people who are having to see having to build their lives around people coming and going to fix what should be a simple job. So there should be better customer service. The costs, which as I said, we built in, because we haven't got that stock condition survey, they will come later. And there was your middle question was.
There was the it was around the new maintenance contract. Now let's go back a bit. My question really is that we are improving the digitisation of the services. Therefore, that should lead to efficiency improvements inside our organisation, and there should be some benefits being shown from that. So I didn't see any in the model anywhere. So where you've got your table of where we need to cut costs to balance the budget. I think what I'm saying is that all three of these activities around the MRI modules, the new maintenance contract in place, and the understanding of our stock condition will drive efficiencies in our organisation, will drive lower costs for some of the work on the properties, and will improve customer service. And I think it's just really worth pulling that out because we're as a policy committee, and I think these are great policies, but let's understand what the outcomes of doing this work will be, is what I'm saying. That should be reflected somewhere in the paper. I know you can't quantify it today, but there will be positives and some negatives associated with these. Overall, it will be positive, I'm sure, and we need to take that forwards. It's a benefit to everybody.
Certainly take that away, and it's a useful build on the paper, and we can do some work to look at to quantify that.
Any further questions? No. Councillor Ross.
Hello. Yes. It's 11.42, and it's about the increase in void turnover, which I would initially looks like it's a bad thing, but obviously we're council taking the opportunity to get void properties and improve the standards and put in insulation and so on is not necessarily a bad thing. But the increase in turnover, my question is firstly, do you have any idea what is driving that increase, whether it's a sort of a social force, demographic, economic, and given that we have a sort of a policy of trying to get voids back occupied as soon as possible, if there is an even greater increase in the turnover of voids, that is an area of sort of economic unpredictability where we may end up with more costs than are budgeted for in this plan. Is that correct?
So voids, they are a cost. They're a cost to the HRA. So for property sitting empty, it appears, and you'll see in the business plan there is a line in there of the cost arising from void properties. But as I've said a number of times, we do need to be a bit careful if what we're doing is just trying to get void properties back out and let as quickly as possible, because it's an opportunity, as you say, as you alluded to do work that may need to be done, rather than have tenants move in and then find that we have to go in and carry out some very disruptive works to do retrofit or maintenance or whatever it may be, if it was close to the period when it was void. So I think this is, again, it's an ongoing piece of work to look at it, and as you say, there are changing trends. As for what we think is driving the higher turnover, we're not sure at the moment, but again, it's something that we can certainly look at and come back to the committee and see what we think is driving that.
Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Chair. So one of the things that came up at scrutiny was the fact that the Appendix 3 only, which shows the 30-year business plan metrics, only goes as far as 32 in terms of new build, and there was some suggestion at scrutiny that could be something that our committee look into in more detail, and I thought I'd just tuck it in at the end of our questions just to see if we want to roll that into debate and work out a way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. Yeah, I've been having conversations with Councillor Reach and with Mr. Henley about further items for this committee in the next sort of municipal year, and that is one of the aspects that will we continue with this in this committee. So we'll decide exactly what the scope is of that. But yes, as it was raised at scrutiny, and I think subsequently as we've discussed at Cabinet as well, it's something that this committee will be looking at amongst with other items as well that have also come up in both those sort of places. So that will be into our sort of forward plan for next municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So are you thinking in terms of sort of like a deep dive in some ways, or that type of thing? Because one of the things that it sort of seems to me that it's quite a complex area with lots of moving parts, and it's one that requires sort of quite a bit of information and then a discussion and thought through in full possession of facts, so that, you know, the committee comes up with some sound policy. And it sort of struck me as this is actually probably a really good one for that sort of thing.
Yes, as I say, that's the conversation I'll be having with Councillor Reach and Mr Hendy. But you know, sort of there are various factors that are going to be coming into play that mean that it's just not a case of rolling forward the programme. There are other things that we need to consider, and yes, that's exactly what we'll be putting into that you know, sort of discussion. Thank you. Any further questions? Then any debate? Councillor Westwood.
No one else is. I think it's a really good paper. It builds on the business plan that was laid out last year. I am exceedingly pleased to see us move forwards with the strategies around digital enablisation of the customer service area and so on. I think that's so important that we provide a really good service out to the tenants and transparency. We clearly need to move forwards with the contract for repairs and maintenance, which has been in place for a very long time, and moving that on to, shall we say, a sounder footing where we've got better control of the costs will be benefits. I'm very pleased to see that work going on. The stock condition survey, which has been going on for a while now and will roll through going forwards, also makes the job of managing the stock and providing the service so much better and so much easier for all concerned, whether it be the council or the tenants. So I think, but as I said during the questioning, I think that will deliver benefits, and we ought to quantify those somewhere, because we're doing good work. So let's tell people we're doing good work there. It'll be service benefits and it'll be financial benefits, I'm sure, in all those cases. Let's draw that out rather than in the appendices focus on the negatives where we need to cut services. In terms of the new build and debt reduction, that was addressed last year and answered, and the position that was given last year was that the new homes at 1,000 homes target run through to 32, 33, and it is prudent to look at the debt that we're amassing, because we are amassing further debt through the retrofit programme, not just the new build programme, and to keep carrying forward debt is probably not the right course forwards, and that was the debate last year, and that policies and more housing will be funded and afforded going forwards. So I think it's prudent to deliver at the moment, to position ourselves to deliver our 1,000 homes target, but also position ourselves that we have an option after 32, 33 to address some of the debt and start reducing that debt burden as well. So I think it's a position, I think it's a sensible position to take at this point in time until we get further information on that. Thank you.
Councillor White.
I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Bolton's point about either a deep dive or a task and finish group. I think that would be really useful in light of the fact that there are lots of changes happening with the compliance and the government policy, and I think it would help us as a committee come up with perhaps more informed decisions for policy.
Councillor Morris.
Yeah, I would just like to say that although it's never a happy decision to increase rents, and it's never a decision to make likely to increase service charges, I think this paper demonstrates that those are necessary in terms of maintaining a balanced budget, and that actually we are in a situation where we are making savings and we're dealing with increased costs from extra regulation and so on. So I hope people will view that the increase as being minimised the pain, as painful as it is, but it has been necessary, and when all alternatives have been explored and unfortunately rejected. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to echo, sort of the positives that have come out of the paper so far in terms of the council's response to, sort of our tenants' needs and sort of the legislative background. I think this paper and the budget that's been proposed will put us in a good position to address both of those. So thank you very much. Right, I think we'll move then on to the. Sorry, there was a just go back to the recommendations. So it's just a comment. So that's right. Thank you. Right, we can move on to agenda item 7, and this is the local visitor economy partnership. And this is coming to us with a recommendation that the Policy Committee asked to review and comment on the work undertaken to develop the Hampshire, Portsmouth, Southampton and Winchester Local Visitor Economy Partnership, the Hampshire Destination Management Plan, and the Policy Committee asked to support the Council's role in facilitating the delivery of the LVEP and realising its benefits in supporting the visitor economy across the district. And introduction by Councillor Thompson. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee for giving the team the opportunity really to have a discussion about the LVEP. So I'm just going to say a few words to about the paper before you, and also hopefully explain what the LVEP is all about and why it is so important for our visitor economy. Last meeting we had a very useful discussion about the development of our tourism strategy, and we learnt some really key facts, namely that our district welcomes over 8 million visitors a year, which in turn supports 5,760 jobs locally, and that the tourism industry contributes to £292 million for our local authority, our local economy, sorry. I think we would all agree that these numbers really demonstrate how important tourism is to our district right now, and the opportunities to grow this sector should not be ignored. That is why back in May of this year, working alongside the County Council, Portsmouth and Southampton City Councils, we were delighted to have gained LVEP accreditation from Visit England, following a submission made on our behalf by Tourism South East. This gives us the opportunity for a continued strategic approach to develop and grow the visitor economy across the county, working together to strengthen Hampshire's profile as a world-class visitor destination. It really is a great milestone to elevate the Winchester District's visitor economy, collaborating with local businesses, the National Park and stakeholders to drive sustainable growth with the potential to attract new investment, create jobs and really showcase the rich experiences our area has to offer. I'm delighted that the LVEP is joining us up with our neighbours in Portsmouth, Southampton and the rest of Hampshire, where again, as I said before, we can really showcase what we have to offer to a much wider audience. In terms of local government reorganisation, of course, this couldn't have come at a better time. Having the LVEP in place and with the City Council playing such a leading role in developing both the LVEP as well as the Hampshire-wide Destination Management Plan, ensures that our own ambitions for a thriving, vibrant Winchester district is underpinned by a strong, well-managed and distinctive visitor offer. I know that our team at the City Council will make sure that our own district's voice and assets are at the heart of shaping Hampshire's visitor economy of the future. So I hope that's given you a quick overview of the local visitor economic partnership and what it can do for our district. The recommendations in the report are asking the committee to review and comment on the work to develop the LVEP and the DMP, and we are asking the committee to support the council's role in the delivery of the LVEP. We're happy to take comments and questions. Thank you.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. So on page 44, I think it is, there's like a list of benefits to the Winchester district of being in the partnership. But are there any kind of projections in terms of data? So what you might expect the increase of visitor numbers or funding or revenue as a result of being in the partnership? And also the flip side of that, what are the risks are there any risks of us being in it?
I'm going to hand over to the officers regarding any future numbers, etc. But I think the huge benefit really is the fact that we have so many wonderful visitor attractions within our district, not just here in the city, but outside in the district as well. And it gives us a chance to really broadcast that to a much wider audience that we've really not being able to sort of touch on, I suppose. But I'll hand over to the officers for the comments about the numbers and possibly the risks as well.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, and thank you, Councillor White, for your initial question. I'm happy to start the answer, and I'm sure my colleague Rachel, as our tourism marketing manager leading a lot of this work stream, will be happy to contribute to that as well. In terms of visitor numbers, economic impact, etc., of the benefits of developing an LVEP. So Visit England's decision to reorganise its way as our national tourism organisation in its way to engage with destinations through the LVEP is still relatively new. In the paper, it shows you a map of where adoption has taken place already, which is a large swathe of England so far, but they are still relatively new, some 1 year, some just under 2 years in their adoption, so still fairly in infancy element in terms of their life journey. That being said, in terms of management of the visitor economy over many years, both at a local level for us as Winchester City Council, but also at a regional and national level, there have been many well adopted methodologies to measure economic impact, and we measure that ourselves through our relationship with Tourism South East, our regional tourism body that we work with, who operate a well respected and well understood economic impact model, and all of those sorts of interventions have been built into all LVEPs that have been established across the country, and are indeed being built into this LVEP that is being planned and developed for Hampshire. When we look at the terms of reference and the governance around the LVEP, there is an executive delivery board and also an advisory committee, and the purpose of that is around scrutiny and challenge and questioning and monitoring to ensure that all the relevant protocols are in place to measure visitor numbers, visitor growth, increase in spend, increase in overnight stays, all of those sorts of metrics that are very well established measures across the tourism industry as a whole. One of the benefits of developing the local visitor economic partnership and our relationship with Visit England is it gives us access to all of those national data figures as well. So it enables us to measure how successful we are in terms of the national and the regional picture as well. I think it's important to understand that next to Southampton and Portsmouth, Winchester is the next most significant visitor economy for Hampshire as a whole, and Hampshire as a county visitor economy is one of the most significant economies across the whole of the southeast, outstripping some of our partners in terms of visitor numbers and overnight stays, for example, Sussex and Kent. So we know that because we've got robust methodologies for measuring these sorts of trends, and they would very much continue in the development of an LVEP. And we, as an authority being involved in that executive delivery group, would continue to measure and match those trends as to what's been measured in the LVEP as well. In terms of risks, I think the argument is the sum of a collective sum is stronger than a sum of parts. So for many years now, the destinations across Hampshire have worked collaboratively to some degree, but has never been the ability to bring us together so cohesively. And so actually just by the very nature of that stronger collaboration and cohesiveness, and the sum of parts being stronger, mitigate sort of any of perhaps the risks that perhaps are inherent of us all working more individually and independently. I have to say that when we talk about risks, we have seen some destination management organisations, we call them DMOs, and LVEPs fall away in recent months. The paper cites things such as Visit Cornwall, Visit Kent, and Visit Hertfordshire. But in the main, the reasons for that have been the balance of funding and financial implications, and that clearly is a risk, and that's certainly one of the conversations that we have, as do our other partners in other authorities, when we talk with Tourism South East, who are supporting the development of this, the development of an agile organisation that has a wide coverage of different funding and commercial models is really very important to ensure agility and resilience to change going forward as well. And probably I would highlight that as perhaps one of the most significant risks to what we've seen from other established LVEPs that have more recently failed. Rachel, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just pick up on the risks as well with regards to the financing that Andrew was talking about. We sort of are leading the way in Winchester as well with our Visit Winchester Partnership and Marketing Programme as well. So we are able to generate sort of commercial income, and that model perhaps can be used by more regionally with other partners in the county. And with regards to sort of the data and the numbers that you talked about in your first question, we've already seen with a destination development partnership pilot in the northeast, they've received some funding to really look at how they can grow the visitor economy and look at the data that underpins that as well. So that sort of centralisation of data, ensuring that other destinations can access that to sort of inform their future plans.
Councillor Bold.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm assuming there's more to it than this, but it seems to suggest the paper that there's a budget of £2,000 that's going to fully mobilise the destination committee and associated working groups, and that sounds amazing value for money if that's remotely true. So I'd like to clarify that. And then so the key functions and the goals all are very sensible, very admirable. The paper talks about setting up lots of committees around all of that. but I'm not clear on what the deliverables are and how those are achieved that actually make those goals happen. And I wonder if you could give me some clarity on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bolton. And again, I'll refer to Rachel for some elements of a response to that as well. Yes, you're absolutely right. £2,000 a year does not deliver everything that we've highlighted in this paper. And apologies if there's any misleading words in the paper. The £2,000 is the City Council's commitment, along with several other local authorities across the county, to Tourism South East to administer and facilitate and develop the LVEP, and to administer it and its secretariat and its governance going forward. So that is our £2,000. The purpose of the LVEP, it is a partnership. So it itself necessarily won't hold funds. It might do, but it won't necessarily. It's a partnership that joins together a number of different organisations, all collectively in a shared vision and a set of shared strategic objectives. And each of those organisations, whether that's ourselves at Winchester City Council, whether that's Southampton City Council, Portsmouth, other partners across our wider county, they then take those shared objectives and reflect those in the work that they do locally that they have their own budgets for. So, for example, here at Winchester City Council, with the work that Rachel and her team does, the City Council sets aside currently a operating budget of around about £55,000 to undertake a series of activities through the well-established Visit Winchester partnership, and that primarily is around tourism marketing and promotion, brand awareness, engagement, and driving presence through a number of channels. And lots of our partners around the county are doing that as well. And the purpose of the LVEP is to bring all of that work together. So each part will continue, subject to its local decision making, in that role. So it will be reflecting some of those priorities within the LVEP, within its own existing decision making around its own budget and its own outputs and activities. That being said, also in terms of funding, Solent Growth Board have committed so far £120,000 over 3 years to support the development of the LVEP and operation of the LVEP, and to provide tactical activity. And Tourism South East are in communications with the Hampshire Prosperity Partnership Board with a similar discussion as well. That partnership board has already contributed some funding to us to put aside, put next to the £2,000 that organisations that like ourselves have already committed for the setup, and then future discussions are taking place around further funding opportunities directly into the LVEP. And of course, hopefully there may be some further future government or other sources of funding that the LVEP itself would look to seek as well.
And just to add to that, in line with what Andrew was saying about access to further funding sort of nationally, we're already drip feeding and seeing examples of that type of funding on the small scale. But for instance, for our businesses, they could benefit from skills and training and unlock some funding through, an example would be Access Able, which is a company that offer detailed access guides for visitors with disabilities that are looking in come to a destination. So Visit England are already providing money towards off those detailed access guides for visitors that are coming in. So although it's not necessarily our contribution, one of the benefits of an LVEP is that it would unlock some more funding.
So one of these working groups that's working on a theme, could you give an example of that and how that then turns into deliverables that come through one of the local authorities in the LVEP. Thanks.
So apologies, we didn't address your second part of your question. A light governance structure, as you've seen, has been developed, and you'll also see in your paper that the Destination Management Plan, the DMP, is currently being developed, and that will be the vision and the strategy and the objectives and the outputs that the LVEP across the county wish to develop. And in the paper we have aligned some of those early emerging themes to then the established themes that have come out through all the work that we have done to date in developing the tourism strategy for Winchester district itself. And there's a lot of lots of parallels and alignment, which is obviously a good position for us to be in. Any more from that is too early to say, because Tourism South East are continuing to develop the DMP and agree the objectives and the outputs, and then once that is agreed, the executive delivery group, which includes us with Southampton, Portsmouth and Hampshire County Council, and also the advisory board, which is made up of generally private sector organisations, will then agree that destination management plan and then start to direct and instruct and create working groups to start developing those strands. And those working groups will be made up of interested excuse me, businesses operating in the visitor economy. So as Rachel said, we have a well-established Visit Winchester partnership. Visit Winchester is for the visitor economy across the district, is seen as the voice of the tourism economy, and we are the go-to organisation. So we would be the facilitating, enabling organisation, assisting businesses to come together under various different work streams to deliver those objectives which feed into the mission and vision of the strategy as a whole. But none of the finer detail has yet to be confirmed, but we have the structure and we have some of the emerging things which we've included so far to date.
And just to add on those emerging themes, they were business industry led. So we had a series of Hampshire workshops where we talked through some of those challenges and themes.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Yes, well, Andrew Costello has answered Neil Bolton's question very successfully, and mine was on a similar theme. And it seems to me that £2,000 for membership is very reasonable. Now, Rachel Gander, you mentioned about gaining funding from that had been achieved successfully in northeast England. And I'm just wondering, because Winchester tends to rather lose out on funding from central government because we're considered so well-to-do. But as a sort of point of debate, I think it's such an asset, our culture here, and I'd love to see more made of it. And for £2,000 membership seems an absolute snip, actually.
When they did the review of destination management organisations, as you'll see in the background in the paper, I think we were all chomping at the bit to get the initial pilot funding that Visit England had promised to deliver the destination development partnership, which it did unsurprisingly go northwards. But when we look sort of more locally, Visit West, they were able to access some funding, although they didn't automatically come up with a lump sum of money like the DDP pilots. They were able to position themselves to bid and secure some funding for a national campaign and leverage some access to sort of additional money in terms of marketing campaigns and profile raising through some of the Visit England I can't remember what the Britain campaigns, I can't remember off the top of my head what they were called, and some of the filming campaigns that Visit England have done. So by being an LVEP, Visit West has been able to raise their profile on the national stage, and Jane Austen, you would have seen that we would have been able to sort of unlock some promotion sort of on the national stage as well via Visit England.
I think, sorry, could I just add to that just a second? Also, Councillor Gordon-Smith, also to understand that, you know, in the funding arena, you know, securing funding is difficult, is challenging, is getting more and more scarce. And yes, you know, we understand and see that, you know, the South and South East is often challenged in gaining some of that funding, but this gives us a direct relationship with Visit England that we otherwise would not have. That's the first thing. But the second thing, that when you're looking at funding, you're looking at impact, and we collectively, working as a county with a number of destinations, have a far better way of demonstrating impact, and depth of impact and longevity of impact by working collectively than arguably we might as individual destinations. So again, that is another reason why this is coming about.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, and just to come in there, yes, totally agree that as Winchester we are seen as well off and not in need of any finance or you know, financial help, but that's the whole point about joining up under an umbrella across Hampshire. There are plenty of places in Hampshire that are, you know, far worse off than we are, and the government knows that, to put it bluntly. So I do think we are in a, you know, a better position being part of a larger conglomeration or collaboration with the whole of Hampshire, including Southampton and Portsmouth, to actually gain help and also support where we need it.
Councillor Morris.
Thank you. Yes. This question is mostly for Councillor Thompson. Given that Visit Winchester is already very successful with 8 million visitors and so forth into the district, what will this enable us to do that we're not doing already in terms of appealing to tourists, or, for instance, going to Portsmouth? How are we going to get people going to Portsmouth to come to Winchester too? What sort of things are we going to be doing there? And are there instances you can think of things we would have liked to have done in the last couple of years that we couldn't have done, but this now enables us, not necessarily definitely is a definite thing we can do, but as things, it opens up the possibility of the things we could do?
I think what we will be able to do going forward as part of this partnership is actually promote what we've got within our district far more effectively to those other destinations. And also, I mean, an instance where I feel sometimes we don't do as much as we'd like, and I'm sure the team will be able to come in on this, is, you know, 8 miles down the road, we have a number of cruise ships that come in constantly. They all quite regularly get on coaches and go off to Stonehenge. They don't necessarily come here. And I know that the team have done quite a bit of work in trying to encourage the ships to actually, or people on the ships, to actually come and visit Winchester in their sort of free time, as it were, but I'm sure there's more we could do on that front, and I just think it's the possibility of being able to just really advertise what we have to the wider community out there. I don't know whether Mr. Costello and Ms. Gander might like to say a few more words.
Very happy to add to that, Councillor Thompson, and I know Rachel will have a lot more to say on that, leading to our tactical activity. But I think, as we said before, this gives us access to Visit England, you know, our national tourism agency, and to benefit from all the work that they do on our behalf and that we can connect to, which previously, without an LVET, we do not get access to. So that immediately puts us more effectively on the national and the international stage with the work that they undertake through their tourism marketing and branding. But that being said, there's a whole range of other activity that we haven't been able to access as well as we might have been able to previously, that we can now around agendas such as accessibility, around agendas such as sustainability, around agendas such as inward investment, which working collaboratively across the county and collaboratively with, more importantly, collaboratively with Visit England, brings forward much more effectively for us as destination managers of Winchester District. And I think the other important point to note is that we have always, all destinations in Hampshire have always would have worked collaboratively together as well as they could, but we all know that visitors don't recognise local authority boundaries, and neither should they. And indeed, you know, how Rachel and the team have established the Visit Winchester partnership is that it doesn't recognise those local authority boundaries, and we work with partners beyond that. And this is taking that, the LVET, that step much further. So as Councillor Thompson says, it better enables to position Winchester as part of a wider Hampshire offer more effectively. And when we refer to our tourism strategy and some of the findings that are coming out of that, and Councillor Thompson talks about the cruise market, but we also know that we have a challenge with overnight accommodation provision. We're a very, very high day visitor destination, but we have a challenge with overnight accommodation to some degree, and that's one of the findings in the tourism strategy. So we're looking at ways that we could, as a destination, address that. Now, that's not to say that we're ever going to propose that we're about to build a 300-400 bed hotel, whatever, in the middle of the city. This could be some more rural niche accommodation provision, etc. But also it allows us to look more effectively at where is accommodation provision just down the road that's already established in some of our neighbouring destinations. So it's about, you know, working collaboratively with them, where visitors stay overnight there but come for the day to Winchester and spend in our local economy, and vice versa. So it gels everything much more closely together than perhaps it has been able to in more recent past. If we go back a little bit further to when we had regional development agencies, and Tourism South East, you've heard me talk about as a regional tourist board, ran a structure of sub-regions, and Hampshire was a sub-region. It brought together all those parts, and we're kind of getting back to that sort of, which was a relatively successful structure then, getting back to that more now, and that's certainly what Visit England want. Visit England want to see a cohesive geographic structure working together, you know, for the betterment of tourism, and that's more understandable for the visitor.
And on the sort of accommodation side, and talking last time we brought the tourism strategy paper to you, we talked about joined up itineraries, Heritage Plus approach. And this is on a bigger scale because we're now looking beyond the district. As Andrew said, we tend to do that anyway, because we know that the more product that we can offer people, the longer that they'll stay and the more they'll spend. So that's one of the things that an opportunity here, really looking beyond that district boundary even more, and working with the partners at Southampton, Portsmouth, Test Valley, New Forest. And just around sort of things that we wouldn't have had access to before. As part of our LVEP accreditation, we've been given a place this year at ITB Berlin, which is a major trade show for tour operators in Berlin. So that's an access to market that we would not have been able to afford to do alone as a city council. So having representation at that trade market is a huge opportunity for us, and it aligns with sort of attracting that near European market. Yeah, so I think it's, and again, I said earlier about access to data intelligence and business toolkits, business support training and advice as well, that it's coming down from Visit England, those programs of training that we'll be able to offer our businesses too.
Councillor White.
So I'm just wondering how the partnership will help with the growth of sustainable travel within our district and encouraging people for low carbon travel to help with the council's greener, faster agenda.
And just to say that after the Hampshire Destination Management Partnership workshops that we went to with our businesses in September, again, the sort of active travel options coming out similar to the things that came out when we were doing our tourism strategy consultation. And I think by collaborating and working with businesses across the county, we perhaps have a little bit more leverage as well, having that LVEP accreditation, looking to other destinations through via Visit England as well, and some of the information that's coming out through them, looking at other case studies across the country about how active travel options have been embedded into destination management plans. I think that that's an opportunity here as well. And by drawing in more visitors because of this national accreditation, unlocking more economic impact, again, might lead to further investment in sort of the transport infrastructure as well, sustainable transport.
Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, just definitely to say that thank you for all the answers you've been giving, which I think gives a real flavour and specific examples of how this is going to work in practice, and sort of really has brought the paper to life. And I think so. My question is really, and since it's asked in a positive way, is really the best way to put it, because I have a feeling it's about really how what drives this. So it's back to the initial questions we had around how Magnet is going to work. But if you could explain how you see this moving forward and then quickly, having a sense of urgency, a sense of momentum. I mean, the risk with a big structure and a lot of people involved is always things get slower. And also, I suppose at a simplest level, is there an ability to also stay nimble locally and not be held back by having to work within a big structure?
I'm very happy to start the responses to that question, Councillor Murphy. So I don't think there's anything here that's going to hold Winchester City Council, Visit Winchester, and working with our Winchester District visitor economy back at all. And why we think that is because when we look at the destination, we look at the tourism strategy that we have in the process of finalising and developing, which the policy committee has also already seen a draft of, and the destination management programme. They are which will be delivered by the LVEP. They are so closely aligned. We are sure that if we continue with our path in terms of our tourism strategy, there's that automatic alignment. And in fact, because we are so strongly placed within the development of the LVEP, within the LVEP structure, we will be influencing its development anyway. So I don't think there's any element that the LVEP itself will hold us back. We will continue as you know, as Winchester City Council, as long as we are Winchester City Council, in continuing to deliver our tourism strategy and the work that Rachel and her team undertakes, which we've recognised is highly acknowledged by the visitor economy. In terms of momentum, it has taken a little while for Hampshire to get to where it is. It is one of the later areas to become an accredited LVEP. But the benefit of that is that we've seen what has happened elsewhere, and we are, you're watching that and learning from that as well. But yes, we are, because of our role on the executive delivery group, we are impressing Tourism South East to maintain the momentum to bring the LVEP about, and there are plans in place that we feel that destination, that DMP, will be ready in not too distant future, and indeed Visit England are wanting that from us as well. So there's a keenness from all parties to maintain that the momentum, and indeed that's important for the industry as well, because the industry have engaged in this process and now they want to be part of it. So I hope that sort of reassures you, Councillor, that we don't see that there's any areas where it's going to hold anything that we were planning on doing back, or distract or detract from our initial plans. In fact, quite the opposite. What it won't do is, if we didn't do anything and we weren't part of the LVEP, we would be at risk. And as Councillor White raised earlier about risks, we would be at risk of disenfranchising our visitor economy from these opportunities and benefits, which actually quite the reverse is what we're doing.
Mr. Morris.
Yes, sort of picking up on Councillor Bolton's point that £2,000 a year for this seems an extraordinarily low amount for what is being proposed to be getting in return. So for that £2,000, what are we actually getting in terms of, could you give the figures there in terms of staff or hours being allocated towards this project? And the second thing is, given that we're regarding this as one of those value multipliers where, for every pound spent, it brings £3 into Winchester. If that turns out to be the case, we could be looking at something where we would spend more money on it in the future to get better value for people in Winchester. So if it's successful, would we end up spending more to bring in more?
So in terms of that 2,000 investment, just to re-clarify, that is a budget allocation and investment we made last year and have made again this year, and that is a nominal amount, along with other local authorities offering a similar amount of money across the district, across the county, to Hampshire, to Tourism South East, to firstly to make the application to Visit England in order to be considered for an LVEP. That happened, which then resulted in, as we've heard from Councillor Thompson, the accreditation in May. That money is going towards the development of what currently is a light touch governance structure, which may be further developed down the line. So we've developed a shadow advisory board at this stage, that they are looking after the administration and secretariat and functioning of those groupings, and Tourism South, as part of that £2,000, Tourism South East are are developing the destination management plan. So that's kind of where that gets to, stops. Then the delivery of that destination plan, the money to deliver that, sits generally with our own local authorities within our own destination activity. So as I said, the 55,000 that currently Rachel and her team have to invest in supporting our local visitor economy, and local authorities across the district, across the county, at differing levels. Southampton and Portsmouth are putting in more than we are. There'll be other authorities that are putting in less than we are, relevant to the economic value of the visitor economy for their area and the priorities that they set locally. So that is how the funding and that mobilises. And then, as I said earlier, then additional funding would come about potentially from the Growth Board and from the Hampshire Prosperity Partnership Board and any other funding channels. And I think your question to say, to get more, do you need to spend more? That's kind of always the case to some degree. Yeah.
Councillor Westwood.
Thank you. This is a classic case of organisations, competing organisations, working collaboratively together to grow the overall economy. So my question is, what is the risk of developing the Hampshire-wide destination management plan that some of our business is stolen by other areas, and how would you recognise it if that happens?
I think I like to call it, as we use the phrase co-opetition. So it's competition, collaboratively driven, and that is how the visitor economy works. You know, as I said earlier, visitors don't recognise boundaries. So when they're developing their itineraries that Rachel was talking about earlier, they will pick things in different places that suit where they want to go. So there's always going to be a little loss, and there's always going to be a little gain. And through those effective, robust and transparent as they possibly can be, relationships with our other destination partners, which we know there's already a very good foundation there. We have very good relationships with pretty well all of our destinations across our county. That cooperation, you know, supports that collaboration and that share of the visitor economy and the visitor opportunity. But we have to be realistic. You know, we're not in control of it. We, even as destination managers, aren't in control of it. We are at the will of what our visitors choose to do. So it's really important that, and one of the early things that Councillor Thompson said, is that all of this is about protecting, building and developing what Winchester District already has, and we're very, very focused on that. So we are very mindful that through the tourism strategy and through the destination management plan emerging from the LVEP, that Winchester tourism and Winchester visitor economy is not lost, and it ensures that it is enabled to grow. So we're very mindful of the pros and cons, of the give and take, of the loss and benefit that happens when you're working across a wider geographic area. But what we do know is, because we are one of the later counties to follow the LVEP opportunity, there are lots of, and some are cited in this paper, lots of examples of where it has worked well. And so we are watching and learning from that to make sure that we gain and we benefit from those opportunities and learnings as well. I don't know if anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was just on the sort of competition or co-opetition, as Andrew would refer to it, and that's not new to us. We've always been vying for businesses' money, and over the years we've seen partners and businesses that obviously their budgets have been reduced, and you know, in the past we've Visit Hampshire, for instance, prior to they used to have an income generating model as well. So quite often we would, although we always work closely with other destinations in Hampshire, there has always been, you know, 2, 3, 4 partners being approached by an advertising agency for their advertising spend. So, you know, we are used to it, and I feel as a team we're quite resilient. We quite often speak with our members, and, you know, they say, look, I've got a dwindling partnership pot. I've got to split it between three companies: Visit Winchester, Hampshire Top Attractions, Tourism South East. But they always say that they value the local destination management organisation, so Visit Winchester, and they feel that that's where they get bang for their buck, basically, because they can invest more locally. So, you know, I think we've got quite a strong reputation in securing investment from our sort of district partners. And then one of the risks, and Councillor White, I meant to bring this up when you asked about risks, you know, the dilution of a brand. But I feel, again, that we're already in a very strong position. The fact that we were asked to join the executive delivery group as well, because we are one of those strong brands in Hampshire, and the work that we've been doing on the tourism strategy as well. And as Andrew said, we're not going to hold back on that. I feel that our presence, our reach, and our the brand work that we will be doing as part of that tourism strategy will only serve to strengthen the Visit Winchester brand as part of a Hampshire offer. So
yep, I understand all of that, but the last bit of my question was, how do you measure it? How do you understand if we are losing? So I think it's really important that there are some measures around this that relate back to this piece of work. I can understand that the tourism numbers going up and for a variety of reasons, but let's just make sure we're in a position to understand if, as you said, other organisations are putting more money in than us, that they're not stealing our glory here. So I think measurement of that is really important so we can actually address anything that's going on.
If I can just quickly respond to that, Councillor Batho, yeah, so just to reiterate, we've got established economic impact measures in place that currently already operate that measure the economic impact, number of visitors, number of spend, number of overnights, all of those sorts of things within Winchester. They are also established in the vast majority of other areas across the county. They are established regionally and they are established nationally, and those protocols will continue. They will be measured within our tourism strategy and they'll be measured within the LVEP destination management plan, and we will monitor that very closely to ensure that we are not losing out. And if there's any change in that, obviously as destination managers we would be looking to see what have brought that change about.
And also in terms of sort of the income generated, obviously we monitor that regularly as well, so we can see if there's income dropping.
Councillor Morris.
Yeah, it's regarding the shadow advisory board, the makeup of members. I mean, the list that's currently given, they're all very august names, much appreciated for their contribution. But I'm sure we can all think of other organisations which have a vested interest in the tourism industry, like English Heritage, the National Trust, even the Southwestern Trains and the universities. So would I be fair to characterise that as they've been invited and there's an open door to them to joining, and this is a situation of if you build it, they'll come. This is the starting point, and we are expecting other organisations to join it in the future. This is not the end result.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Morris. I mean, as I said, this is a shadow board as well. These are the organisations that, let's call them early adopters, that have come to the table very quickly. All of those organisations you cite, we work already closely with, that are relevant within our district, that we have relationships with as well. And just because this is the advisory board, there is the destination committee and there's the working group. So there are various different channels and routes in for all of those strategic bodies that have a significant influence and strategic voice over the development of the visitor economy across our district and across our county to engage in this process. This is getting it started, and this is a shadow group, and we expect that to develop as the destination management plan and its objectives emerge and become clearer as well.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
No, you've just, I was going to ask precisely the same question as Councillor Morris, and I just wondered why Southwest Trains weren't on it, but you've explained, so that's that.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask, obviously the paper refers to local government reorganisation. What from other authorities or other LVEPs that are in a already devolved authority with a mayoral lead, what changes would you expect to the LVEP and its relationships as a result of that? Thank you.
Which is confirmed.
Just getting my notes. We haven't actually, I mean, again, looking at North East Destination and Marketing Manchester, we didn't actually look at them in, we had some examples to draw on, but we didn't actually look at them from a devolved element. But Marketing Manchester, yeah, my example looks about climate change and how they've commissioned the Tyndall Centre for Climate Change, so it's not really related to devolution. But perhaps we could go away and look at some of those examples. Oh, actually, in the report, in the paper itself, let me just find. I know Andrew's. What page is it on?
48.
48. Page 48. Just reread it.
So as Rachel's just sort of looking at that, we did, there are several examples of where mayoral authorities have already been developed and the LVEPs have been established as part of that. We've cited 2 or 3 in the paper as part of our relationship with Visit England through best practice. They are able to guide us in the sort of the things to observe, the areas of change, etc., that may well come about as a result of a mayoral authority. We are starting that thinking process, obviously, because it's now becoming very key for us in terms of Hampshire. When we set out on our journey with the tourism strategy, part of our brief was to ensure that it addressed local government review and devolution and the impacts of that. And indeed, the destination management plan being developed as part of the LVEP also has been tasked to address the impacts and changes around local government review and devolution. So we are preparing our knowledge and our intelligence and our case to ensure that we are best placed. And one of the benefits of us already having a tourism strategy, there are many other local authorities and other destinations that aren't as advanced as us. So all of this is in preparation to ensure that the visitor economy for Winchester District remains key and recognised and acknowledged and supported and developed in any new method of working going forward through the combined authority and through local government review. Obviously there will be change, obviously there will be challenges along the way, but we are preparing ourselves for those, and that's why we said earlier on that it is so important that we're starting this process now, because it is incredibly timely against that changing landscape.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I just wanted to come in on that and say, I think actually starting this process and having an LVEP by the time we know who our partners are and everything begins to take shape is going to be really important. And the tourism strategy that we talked about last time, that is very much in its latter stages of development, is incredibly important, because we know that other district councils aren't doing any of that work. So to be in that, in the driving seat, if you like, and for Winchester City Council to be actually leading the work on the LVEP, along with Portsmouth and Southampton, who, you know, at the moment are unitaries in their own right, I think is fantastic. It gives us a really strong hand in whatever shape our organisation is going to be in the future, and certainly helps with the mayoral setup too. So I think there's a lot to be gained for the work that the team are doing on this.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I think that's a good summary and an opportunity for us to move into debate. So can I ask Councillor Sheldon?
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that comes across for me really strong is obviously collaboration. I think we've heard very clearly tonight, I guess, the doors that this has potential to open as well in terms of the national body in industry, which is all great. I do, I guess, and I guess the other thing I should say is a few of us commented on the potential, should we say, large bang for minimal buck in terms of, what we're putting in this and what we're getting out of it. I do have a sense, though, that we need to go into it eyes open in terms of what needles can we move. I think you gave a very good example in terms of the overnight stays. We have limited capacity for, from a hotel perspective, from an accommodation perspective on additional overnight stays. How much do we push that as a district, given that we know that we're going to get limited benefit from that? One of my, I think it's fast becoming a pet peeve is also sort of transport across the district, within this committee and what that actually means to us. And I think that's another great example here where Absolutely, we should be exploring kind of broad opportunities, not just across the district, but across the regional area. But the practicality of how we actually do that without then invoking, additional transport movements, across the road, given that's really the only viable option for us, unfortunately, from a district perspective, I think we need to be careful of as well. So broadly, overall, absolutely supportive, get the collaboration aspects, get the doors that opens. I just think we need to go in eyes open as to actually what do we think we can get out of this from a Winchester perspective.
I'd just like to echo Councillor Thompson's remarks in terms of the fact that this is an opportunity for Winchester to actually sort of work on a much wider regional stage, and opens up the opportunity of us to sort of work with other partners, which I think, and my question was around devolution and local government reorganisation. I think actually having something like this at a sort of county level, even though the county as a structure will cease to exist, will actually work very well then with that devolved sort of mayoral partnership. So I think actually having this in advance of that actually to some extent sets up the visitor economy to then actually be able to work and interface into that mayoral authority as and when that is elected and becomes sort of part of our day-to-day organisation within the Hampshire area. So it's great that we have been able to be a part of that, and commend you for the work you've done. Thank you very much. Right, I think we only have the review of our committee's work programme, which we've only got the one meeting left this municipal year. And I think Matthew would look quickly. Yeah, so we've currently actually got tourism strategy, but we're also putting together a further sort of a topic around housing, which will be an interactive sort of discussion around some of the issues that the officers are presented with on a regular basis in terms of actually delivering the housing strategy and the housing sort of the housing needs for our residents. So the idea is that the committee will actually have that as an opportunity to discuss and actually sort of be taken through some case studies, so that we actually use it as a learning experience to actually improve and sort of enhance our understanding of the background to some of those activities that are regular, sort of things that our officers are faced with. So I think that's the plan for the 24th of February. But other than that, that's the meeting finished at 6 minutes past 8. Thank you all very much.